If you are watching this video, it's because you have just been for a Moxy 515 test down here at MapDeck, and now you want to know how to interpret that data into something useful. Well, the good news is the test you've just done, and why your legs are so sore right now, you've just done a fantastic test, which is really going to help you visualize your performance limiter in terms of muscular, cardiac, or pulmonary. But we need to go through a couple of steps first on an Excel spreadsheet that's going to run some equations, nothing for you to worry about. It's just little drop-down menus and observations to make. And at the end, you get a dashboard of like saying, this is how you're performing. And then you can make some really intelligent decisions about how you want to address your training going forward. So let's flip over into some of the data and show you what to do. Don't worry, it is super easy. And here we go. Now, what I've got here on the left-hand side here, this is when you get an email from us after your test, it will have a link. And when you click that link, it will take you to a page like this. This is all of your data that came from that session. So much data. We only want a very small part of it. The other side here you can see is the Excel spreadsheet that you can see. There's a link in the description on the video. Also, if you got sent an email, there's a link there and you can download this. Now, when you open it up, you need to make sure that you enable the macros. You need those macros on so that all the equations will work. So you set your screen up like I've got it here and you are good to go. So start on the Excel spreadsheet and fill your name in and the date. Now this is done automatically. You can just do it in a date format. So this is on the 7th, then do a slash of November. So 11th slash 2023, click enter and it will automatically generate that for you. The sport we did is cycling. And then down here, the Moxy data, working muscle. So this is where we had the sensor located on you. Now, if you did it in a group, it's normally on your quad muscle or your vastus lateralis. So, and I think Paul had his on his left. Now, if you come down here and do this test on a one-to-one basis, we might use more than one Moxy, in which case you need to put in the location of the second. But we didn't, so this is a no, which automatically grays out this box. And then lastly, it wants to know whether you had a heart rate monitor on or not, in which case we did. Okay, so that's all okay. Okay, after that, we've got 3 sections. We've got an SMO2 section, a THB section, and a heart rate section. So we're going to start with muscle oxygen. So right here, so the very first question it asks us is, enter the rest SMO2. SMO2 is what we're measuring. That's the saturation of muscle oxygen as a percentage. So down here on your email, it will have this little section here called muscle oxygenation and the values there. So we are looking for the maximum, which is 77.5. So we can put in here 77.5. Enter. Second question is, which of the following best describes the lowest minimum work SMO2? Now, this is going to be the minimum, but it might not have been at this stage. And if you're unsure, you can scroll down and look at the graph. Normally, the minimum will be right at the very end of the test when you're at your most tired, in which case this was. So we're happy with this figure of 11.5. But this time we use the drop-down box, and it's going to be less than 20. So we can put less than 20 in. Okay, question 3. We need the graph now. So let's just scroll down to the graph and we'll just double click on it and just focus on that graph. That's all we're looking for now. It's just going to be trends and observations. So which of the following best describes the trend in rest SMO2 values in the later part? So you can see where these lines are running. They're following the line of the peaks and it's looking for an upward trend or a downward trend. So come over here and look at Paul's. Here are the peaks where he was resting. And if we were to draw a line from here on the very last one to down here, we can see that's going to be an uphill trend across there. So we can use this drop down menu and we can see that there is a clear increase. It's really obvious to us. We don't have to look too closely to see that there is a clear increase from where his resting values here compared to his resting values here. So a clear increase. Number 4, which of the following best describes the trend in working SMO2 values across the intervals in the latter part of the assessment? So these are the working bits. This is when your legs are really hurting for those 5-minute sections here. And we can see that his values here are higher than the values here. So there is a clear decrease. It's obvious. You don't have to look too closely. So we can use that drop down and we can see that there is a clear decrease. Number 5, which of the following best describes the trend in the working SMO2 values in the latter part? So rather than looking at the trend across the entire test, we're now just interested in these last bits here. And you can see that it's a very slight decrease. It's almost a flat line, but if you were to zoom in and look at the values, you can just see there's a very slight decrease. So we can put a slight decrease there. Okay, section 2. You see, told you that was easy. The next section is about the THB, so the total hemoglobin. This is just the count of hemoglobin underneath that sensor. And on this chart, it's going to be the dark red that almost looks a bit blocky in its sort of shape. So what we're looking for here, which of the following best describes the trend in rest THB values? So rest is going to be slightly different. So we need to look at where Paul was resting. And these are actually going to be here. So Paul's THB values actually drop when he is resting. Which yours might do something completely different. So everyone is very, very different on this. But the general trend from here up here is he's got more blood in the working muscle than when he started. So we can put down there is a clear increase. Next up, in general, for the latter part of the assessment, what trend do you observe for the working THB values across intervals? So these are almost flat. Look, if you draw a line of best fit, that's almost a flat line through there, almost a flat line. This one's got a slight trend, but it's an anomaly. So let's have a look at that. That's flat. That's almost flat. So we can say this is steady. And then in general, for the latter parts of the assessment, what do you observe for the working THB on the repeat load compared to the first load? So this is these repeat loads here compared to the repeat loads here. So Paul has more hemoglobin under the sensor in the latter part of the test compared to the first part. So put in there that there is a clear increase. Now, section 3, you might find this quite hard to do on your charts, but this is looking for a delay in when the load comes off the turbo trainer and how quickly your muscles start to resaturate with oxygen. Now, you can look at these and there should be a relatively straight line between when your heart rate starts to decrease, your total hemoglobin starts to change and your muscle oxygen starts to change. This should all happen, a second that the load comes off the turbo trainer and you get that, oh my God, that amazing feeling that you're resting for a second. That's that exact moment. And at that exact moment, your heart rate should drop, THB should change, and muscles should start to absorb oxygen. So if there is a delay, we need to make a note of that. So I can't see any evidence of a delay here on Paul's. Okay, almost there. Section 4, just looking at heart rate. Now, on this one, it is the light red chart here that you can just see traced, and we can start making those observations. So, question 10, which of the following best describes the trend in resting heart rate across the last few recoveries? So again, we're looking at the recovery, so when his heart rate will be low. So at this point, this point, this point, this point. Now this one is very, very low. So try and rule out these anomalies. This might have been where Paul stopped cycling for a little bit. Maybe he grabbed his water bottle and took a drink or something. But generally speaking, this is where his resting is, and it gets higher and higher. So his heart rate during the rest gets higher and higher throughout the different rests. So we can say that is a clear increase. Which of the following best describes the trend in working heart rate across the last few intervals? So you can look at this chart here. You can see we're looking for that general trend. So down here, quite low, about the same. This is higher, this is higher, this is higher. So we can say is a clear increase. Number 12, which of the following best describes the trend in working heart rate within the load of the last few intervals? So just these last few, when we're working pretty hard now, does your heart rate go up and just stay high and about stays about average, or does it just keep escalating and keep climbing throughout that 5-minute working set? And you can see here, it's obviously, really obviously climbing. So we can put clear increase. And then 13, in general, for the latter parts of the assessment, what do you observe for working heart rate on the repeat load compared to the first load? So we're looking at these sections here. And are they higher? In which case, this load here, this average heart rate across this section here is higher than the average heart rate across this section here and across this section here. So that is showing clear increase as well. So once we've answered all those questions, we can come back up here and click this button that says Preview Limiter Dashboard. And it's going to crunch your numbers and you're going to get this generated for you. So this is the really cool visual representation that I said. This is the limiter. Now, the further along the graph it is, the more it is limiting your future performance. So in this case, it's identified as pulmonary as Paul's biggest limiter, if you like, but cardiac is not insignificant, and muscle. Now, this doesn't mean to say that you're strong, and I just want to focus in and just go, come on. This isn't saying, are you strong or are you weak? This is muscle oxidative capacity. So this is the cells, your muscle cells' ability to take glycogen or sugar, if you like, and oxygen and combine it to make energy, ATP, and therefore make a muscle twitch. Now, regardless of whether you are strong or weak, you still need little parts in your cell called mitochondria that are going to make energy to make that muscle twitch. So this is more about your muscles taking all the ingredients, i.e. sugar and oxygen, if you like, to then make a muscle twitch. So it doesn't matter how strong you are, if you've not got the energy available to twitch it, it's not going to work. So in this case, Paul's got a very high concentration of mitochondria, and they're very efficient, which means that if you're feeding them enough energy, i.e. glycogen, etc., then it will use oxygen and make energy. So happy days. The cardiac limiter, this is about the transport system. So imagine that you've now got your bloodstream is full of oxygenated red blood cells, and it's pumping around your body. Your body will always prioritize your vital organs. It'll always send oxygen to your brain, to your heart, to your lungs, etc., all the things that need to make your body work. Then it will send it to the working muscle, the bit that you're trying to use to run, cycle, whatever. And then lastly, it will send it to where it doesn't need it the most. So it might be your arms or your fingers or whatever it is that it's not using very much at the time. So if you have a cardiac limiter, you might see this flag up as your body is really struggling to pump blood everywhere it needs it, or it's struggling to deliver oxygen. And on the other side, pulmonary limiter is all about that gaseous exchange. So you've taken a big lung full of air, and you need to get those oxygen molecules into the bloodstream via the alveoli and then be carried away by the cardiac system. But also, you need to make sure that the CO2, the waste product, is being put back into the lungs so that you can exhale it. So it looks like the limiter here is that part for Paul, which means that he can probably work on the gaseous transfer. Now, how we do that, that's a conversation with your coach. They will help use this. One, to either work on the limiters if it's relevant to your sport, or maybe to exaggerate your strengths, depending on what your goals and ambitions are. But once you have this information, you can make some really, really good, intelligent decisions. So there we go. I hope that was useful. I would really appreciate it if you're coming in here for your next session in the Know Your Numbers case, is to generate this. And then if you have questions, ask the questions once you've got to this stage, and then we can try our hardest to give you some advice going forward. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you in the next class. Take it easy.